Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be touching on why there is hardly any Western girl groups breaking into the mainstream media these days, what's going on in the Western market, and why the public aren't interested in Western girl groups anymore. This will also be a part 2 of my last video, The Flow Effect, where I briefly mentioned the rise of girl groups in 2024 that have debuted a few years ago but never had their moment of superstardom yet in the mainstream. So sit back, relax and enjoy the video. So, what is a girl group? According to dictionary.com, a girl group is an all-female vocal pop group created to appeal to a young audience, which you can tell from this definition. Girl groups don't have to be all in the pop genre because we have genres like R&B, alternative, rock girl bands, country girl bands, and many more genres that are doing well in the industry. Also, girl groups these days incorporate dance routines as well, such as Little Mix, the Pussycat Dolls, Blackpink, and of course, Fifth Harmony. The history of girl groups. Did you know that the first ever girl group that debuted was in the 1920s? This was when they really started to become significant in the music industry and started to show success in the mainstream. The original girl groups at this time were mainly white women who had been influenced on both white and black music that created a jazz-like sound. The first girl groups that showed mainstream success in this genre were girl groups such as the Andrews Sisters, Three Sisters, and the Boswell sisters, who mainly were put together as trios and wore the same outfits. This was also the time when girl groups were all sisters, explains why they had sisters in their names and they looked the same as well. In the 1960s, we started to see the rise of Motown girl groups. For example, the Marvelettes were one really successful girl group with their hit single you've probably heard before, Please Mr. Postman. However, according to RubyOnMusic.com, their success was very overshadowed by another popular girl group at that time you probably already have heard of, which is the Supremes. The Supremes were known as another trio with their famous iconic member Diana Ross, who went on to become the most influential girl group from the 1960s and also inspired a film and a musical, Dreamgirls, which is probably one of my favourite films ever. And then there was another girl group at this time also known as the Ronettes, who also had the boy band The Rolling Stone open for them on their tour. One of their most well known songs is Be My Baby. And will forever go down in girl group history like the others I mentioned in this video. There was also many other girl groups from different decades, from the 70s, 80s and 90s and etc, but that's a different rabbit hole I could do a whole massive deep dive on. So anyways, why are Western girl groups flopping these days? I know you're thinking, come on Olivia, flopping isn't a nice term. Don't you mean not achieving mainstream success straight away like previous girl groups, Little Mix and Fifth Harmony? Yes, and also no. One of the reasons why Western groups are finding it hard to break into the mainstream media is because of the lack of reality singing shows like The X Factor. Ever since the downfall of The X Factor and the rise of TikTok, the music industry, especially in the UK, has been suffering so badly. I feel like record labels are struggling how to market new artists and new groups and actually promoting them well like they did before. I think record labels are becoming lazy with girl groups because I've seen a frequent pattern where labels go all in with promoting their girl group. In the first year, they stop promoting them. Boys World are another girl group that has fallen victim to this, and whoever is marketing them at the moment is struggling really bad. I also realised that mostly American labels are too invested in K-pop groups these days because that's where the money is. One of the reasons why K-pop has taken over the Western group market is because of the consistency. K-pop idols are also trained years before being added into our group, so they have received artist development to be seen the best of everybody's standards. Meanwhile, Western groups from the past, especially in the 2010s, hardly had any artist development and were shot up to fame straight away, being told what to wear, sing, and how to act. This was because they were really young teenagers who were impressionable and naive, just finding their feet in the music industry. Although there could be issues where labels are being too controlling. For example, Little Mix weren't allowed to write their own music even 6 years into their career. And I feel like ever since music artists who came out to the world talking about how shit their record label was to them has definitely put off new artists with signing to a new big label, and that is why we are seeing the rise of independent artists like nothing before. This is because newer artists want the creative freedom and not feel like they are being controlled in their career, which happens a lot in girl groups and boy bands. For example, One Direction were branded into different categories depending on their personality, such as Harry was the flirt and the womanizer according to grown adults in the media. Louis was the funny guy. Liam was the sensible dad of the group, Zayn was the mysterious one, and Niall was the innocent Irish one. The innocent, cute Irish one, should I say. This makes it hard, especially for young teenagers who are experimenting, because they are finding out who they really are, and these branded stereotypes must be really hard to live up to these standards, and being a famous, influential person to teen girls. It has also come out that K-pop idols are also overworked and controlled by their record labels, such as being forced to have a restricted diet, stay skinny to achieve Korean beauty standards, members of the groups fainting on stage, and the list can go on. However, the K-pop formula is still at the peak in the mainstream media, and the American market are eating it up because their formula in creating groups is still so new, and they know how much money they will be making after putting another girl group together, because they have a new promotion styles that are engaging consumers to become interested. For example, K-pop companies always make sure their groups are being consistent, which is something the Western world of the music industry is lacking, because the Western world are still trying to find a technique on promoting and branding groups and also solo artists. I feel like Western market is literally broke because all they tend to do is promoting their big artists, because that is where the money is at. Also, it just shows that how overworked K-pop artists are, because the K-pop companies don't care about their mental health by working them to the core, because K-pop is so successful mainstream, so they have to produce so much content because that's where the money is, and they're so popular, where these K-pop companies are basically exploiting these K-pop idols to produce so much content without letting idols have a break and not letting them eat food, aka the normal daily essentials our human needs. Of course, America had to chime in, noticing how much money Korea was making after producing these big K-pop bands, and partnered up with HYBE. It's a huge management company that has the biggest boy band in the world at the moment, BTS, to create the first ever global girl group on the show called Dream Academy. Many young girls from around the world auditioned to be added into a girl group, like the same way as big popular K-pop groups such as Blackpink, Girls' Generation, Twice, BTS, EXO, and so on. The final group was called Cat's Eye, who haven't released their debut single yet, but I can already see that they will make noise and become big, because already they are being invited to events, aka Coachella, and meeting huge household celebrities. Also, Dream Academy will have their own Netflix documentary coming out at some point this year, which will definitely increase the popularity for Cat's Eye. However, the only downfall I see from them is the different age ranges, such as some members are teenagers and some are in their early 20s, which brings me on to the next topic I will be discussing about. According to Antics with Ash podcast, Ash was on 2017 season of The X Factor. She said that the X Factor judges put her in a really random group filled with random girls from different ages. One member was 15 and she was 22. They had nothing in common. The same thing exactly happened with Hive's new global girl group Cat's Eye, which makes me worried for their future, noticing they have different maturity levels, which makes me wonder how well the members of Cat's Eye will get along. Another reason why Western girl groups aren't popular now is because of the general public becoming sick of the same repeated actions every group makes, such as one member goes solo after 5 years of being together, 2 members have beef, and then the band eventually ends up going on a long hiatus. And then eventually when they turn 45, they've announced their reunion tour. Meanwhile, K-pop artists audition to be in a group because they actually want to be in a group band. However, Mr. Simon Cowell's formula on The X Factor, he just formed random solo artists in a group and hoped to make the next One Direction and Little Mix and Fifth Harmony, and sometimes it didn't really work. Like of the group Ash was in. The only girl group that was made by Simon Cowell after the rise of 1D, Little Mix and Fifth Harmony, who are still together, are a group called RLY, also known as Real Like You. I've spoken about them too many times on this channel, but I won't shut the fuck up about them any longer. They only debuted last year due to label issues and COVID, but now have their debut EP out now called Generation, which is so beautifully written, and I suggest you all to check them out because they are really, really good, and I have hope for them in the future. However, during the mid-2010s, this was the start of the decline of reality show singing competitions, because during that time, previous X Factor contestants were coming out with how they were mistreated from the show. It also was a known fact that reality competitions are all staged and aren't like what you expected it to be. Many reality singing shows have already been picked by the producers on who is going to be the winner of the show this year by throwing the winners and the finalists of the show to be shown at the first episode so that they can become the most memorable from the show. So if you can tell, these shows are really calculated and fixed. I feel like viewers believe there were no point in watching them because of how staged they had become, and it generally became repetitive and annoying to watch. However, Jasmine Zaid has done a video called The Problem with Reality Show Competitions, where she explains the controversies. It's generally a really good video and I suggest you all should watch it because I'm obsessed with her channel. The future of girl groups generally interests me because what is next for the Western girl group market? Well, I have noticed through my research and observations that it's very social media based. Many of these new gen Western girl groups are either being scouted by record labels as soloists through covers on the internet and are being added in a girl group. For example, this formula was done with Say Now and Boys World, who previously were founded by their labels by posting original covers of themselves and were asked if they wanted to form a girl group. Another way girl groups are being recognised is through a viral tweet or video on social media like Twitter or TikTok. I covered this in my The Flow Effect video on how Flow basically blew up on Twitter and how I feel like many of other girl groups are trying way too hard to replicate the same success. Meanwhile, Flow got lucky and actually had shown how talented they are vocally and their true personalities. Meanwhile, some groups trying to replicate Flow's success hardly have any content out to actually see what they are capable of doing. Like, it's all about hard work and putting yourself out there so people can notice you and then actually stan you. And I feel like that's some advice for future girl groups who want to be big one day. Also, Flow had a big label backing them, so that helped them achieve more mainstream success. However, some of these newer girl groups aren't signed with a big label due to labels believing that Nobody wants girl groups in the West anymore because K-pop is taking over. Although I have noticed after the Y2K aesthetic has made a comeback, girl groups have been an interest on Twitter. Like, I think it's really cute how these new upcoming girl groups are like dressing up as the Cheetah Girls. Like, oh my god, that's so adorable. I remember Boys World dressing up as the Cheetah Girls once. And by the way, Boys World, I think this year is going to be their year to shine. Like, they are really that girl group this year. Same as Flow. Like, Flow and Boys World are the only Western girl groups that are showing a little bit of mainstream success. I know Boys World's not really mainstream, but they're bigger than most of the other girl groups. Overall, I do think that the new upcoming girl groups have to work a lot harder, especially if they are an independent girl group with no label. This is so they can sustain a following who are interested in their music, which will be beneficial long term if they want to make money from their art. The most important thing I suggest girl groups should do is keep being consistent on your social medias and engaging with your fan base, even if they are a small amount of people. Although TikTok is really good for getting noticed and being a quicker way for you to blow up, I suggest girl groups to make a YouTube channel because YouTube is a very rewarding app when you are being consistent, such as making more longer covers, showing your vocals and dance routines, and also daily vlogs too. All of this is engagement, and to sustain a fan base you need to be engaging and also stand out of the crowd, because viewers, fans, they need authenticity, and we don't want another wannabe Little Mix. We want the real you, see what your interests are, and yeah, authenticity. That's so important. Oh my days. And being consistent. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Comment below your favourite girl groups, your favourite girl group song, because I'd love to know. Okay, bye.